grain. Just the kind that makes everything smell like iron and memory. Sam's wagon was parked at the end of the lane. 2 big oxen. A tarp stretched tight over a stack of crates. A saddle hanging by the rear wheel. She saw the rifle tucked behind the driver's bench. Loaded. You bringin' me on for muscle? Martha finally asked as she climbed aboard. Her voice wasn't soft. It was the kind of voice that came from hauling wet grain and splitting logs without gloves. She didn't expect an answer. But Sam looked at her, not through her, not past her, right at her. His eyes were gray, like river stone, and they didn't blink when he spoke. I'm bringing you on, 'cause I need someone who don't scare easy. The road out of town wound through open fields. The air smelled of cattle and spring rot. Neither of them spoke for miles. Martha kept her back straight and her hands folded in her lap, even as the wind cut through her threadbare sleeves. She'd learned early not to hunch. Hunching made you look ashamed, and shame was a scent men pounced on. By the time they reached the hills, the light had dipped low behind the treeline. The cabin came into view all at once, a shadow tucked into the ridge, with a chimney coughing smoke and a single porch light glowing like a promise. Martha stepped down before Sam could offer help. Her boots sank into the soft earth, the weight of the day pressing behind her knees. You'll sleep inside, Sam said, already untying the oxen. Got a second room made up. Martha blinked. She'd expected a barn, a cot, maybe hay. Inside was plain, but clean. A wood stove, a long table, a single rug with faded edges. The second room held a cot with a patchwork quilt and a tiny window that let the dusk in like a whisper. She didn't know how to say thank you. Not without it sounding cheap. Instead, she walked back to the main room and stood near the stove. What kind of work you want done? Sam shrugged off his coat and hung it near the fire. You'll see, he said. That night, as the rain thickened, Martha lay in the small room staring at the ceiling. Her arms ached from nothing, from not lifting, not hauling, not being useful. She hated stillness. Stillness meant remembering. Somewhere in the quiet, she heard Sam humming. Not loud. Just low, steady, like someone who'd forgotten how to talk but still needed the comfort of sound. The next morning, she rose before the sun, the way she always did. Found a broom. Swept the front porch. Carried water from the well. She stacked the logs he'd split the week before, neatly, like her father had taught her. When Sam came out carrying his coffee, he just nodded once. Approval without words. It was the best kind. For 3 days it went like that. No questions. No orders. But every time she did something, Sam added more tools to the porch rack. A spade. New gloves. On the 4th day, the first test came. She was bent over the garden bed when she heard the hooves. 4 horses. Hard riders. Dust trailing like ghosts. They didn't come quietly, and they didn't stop at the gate. Sam stood on the porch, rifle resting across his arms like a greeting card no one wanted to open. The men didn't dismount. One of them, rail-thin with a crooked smile, leaned forward in his saddle. Didn't think you were talking in borders these days, Creek? Sam didn't blink. Ain't your business. The rider smiled wider. Thought you liked 'em small and scared. Not tall and mean. Martha stepped out from behind the shed. She didn't say a word. Just stared. The man's grin faltered. Another rider, younger, sharper, spit in the dirt. She's the Ironwood girl. Heard she broke a man's jaw back in Dustin. Sam didn't move. She'll break yours if you give her reason. They left after that. Not fast. But not slow either. That night, over stew, Sam said the words she'd been waiting for since day one. Trouble's comin'. I needed someone beside me who'd stand, not run. Martha swallowed hard. You think I'm strong enough? Sam stared at her like it was the stupidest thing he'd ever heard. You were born strong. What you need is a place where no one punishes you for it. She didn't cry. Not then. But her hands trembled on the spoon. Because no one had ever said that before. Not like it was a good thing. The storm came 2 nights later. Not a weather storm. Worse. It began with a letter. Thin paper, no return address, folded twice and nailed to the cabin door before sunrise. Martha spotted it first, stepping out with a bucket in one hand and a rooster feather caught in her hair. She froze mid-step. The nail glinted in the light. Sam peeled the paper loose and read it once. Then again. He folded it slow, the way you might fold a death sentence if you didn't want the wind to catch it. "They know about the deed," he muttered. Martha frowned. "What deed?" He looked up at her like she'd asked what dirt was made of. "This land, ridge and valley both. It's sitting on a silver line. Surveyor passed through 6 months back. Tried to buy me out quiet. I said no." "Who's they?" "Men who smile in daylight and burn your fence posts at night." Martha looked out at the edge of the woods. The pine line didn't move, but something in her gut did. "They want me off the land. They figure I scare easy." Her jaw tightened. "You don't." He folded the letter again. "Neither do you." By sundown, they had a plan. Martha sharpened the fence stakes and reinforced the coop where the livestock were kept. Sam packed 2 rifles, 6 jars of lamp oil, and a box of shells into a trunk beneath the bed. Neither of them said the word siege. They didn't have to. That night, they ate on the porch. Wind moved through the trees like a whisper with teeth. "You ever been afraid?" Martha asked. Sam stared out into the dark. "Once. My wife died slow. That was fear. This." He tapped the porch rail. "This is just preparation." Martha's eyes dropped. "You don't ask about my past." "Don't need to," he said. "It's written in how you carry yourself." "Like what?" "Like someone who got used to ducking before fists land. Like someone who built her whole body strong enough to be left alone." She swallowed hard. Her hand curled around the bowl until her knuckles blanched. He didn't look at her when he added, "You deserve to live somewhere you don't have to be afraid of sleep." She didn't respond. But that night, for the first time, she didn't sleep with her boots on. The attack came on a Wednesday. They heard the dogs first, barking from the trees, frenzied. Then the sharp whistle of a signal. 3 riders. Torches. Bandanas pulled tight. Sam was already by the window with his rifle. Martha didn't hesitate. She grabbed the lamp oil and the flint from the stove. "I'll take the side door," she said. He looked at her, steady. "You're not bait." She cracked the faintest smile. "I'm a battering ram, Sam. Let me do what I do." They didn't fight like amateurs. These men had done this before. Ride in, burn out the homesteader, file the land claim once the house was ashes. But what they hadn't counted on was someone like Martha Ironwood stepping into the dark with fire in her hand and rage in her chest. The first man never saw her coming. She threw the burning oil dead at his chest. He screamed, not from the fire, but from shock. A girl that size wasn't supposed to be that fast. Wasn't supposed to be that furious. Sam dropped the second with a shot through the thigh. The third turned tail, bleeding from the side where Martha had clipped him with the broken shovel handle. When it was done, the clearing smelled like smoke and blood and wet dirt. Martha sat on the steps, breathing hard, her hair plastered to her face. Sam crouched beside her, hands slick with mud and iron. "Still scared?" she whispered. "Only of you," he said, voice rough. "In a good way." The sheriff rode up at dawn. The attackers were known men, hired thugs from the next county. Wouldn't be the last time, he warned. That ridge stirs up greedy folk. Sam nodded. "Let him come." Martha stood behind him, arms crossed, blood on her sleeve. The sheriff glanced at her, hesitated, then added, "Most girls don't last long out here." Sam turned. "She's not most girls." That night, they didn't say much. The fire crackled. The scars on her knuckles felt warm and alive. Sam was fixing the door hinge when he spoke again. "You ever think about staying?" he asked. "I'm here, ain't I? I mean more than work. More than fixing fence and scaring off thieves." She looked at him. For once, he looked away. "I got no name to offer. No ring. But I've got this land. And a bed you're welcome to move into if you ever feel like." Martha reached for his hand. He stilled. She took the tool from his palm, set it on the table, then stepped in close. "You don't have to ask, gentle," she said. "I've been waiting to hear it plain." Then she leaned her forehead against his and whispered, "Yes." Outside, the night was quiet. The ridge, for once, didn't feel like something to defend. It felt like something worth coming home to. The first time Martha held the baby, she didn't say a word. The child had been left on the chapel steps down in Carter's mill, wrapped in an old grain sack, still red-faced from screaming. It was Preacher Ellis who rode up the trail, baby bundled in his arms, sweat on his brow, voice urgent. They said no one else could take her, the old man wheezed. Figured you two might be the only ones who'd try. Sam hadn't blinked. We'll try. And just like that, there was a child in the house. A girl. No name. No clue who her parents were. Just one tooth poking through and a scream that rattled the rafters. Martha stared down at her, arms solid as stone, heart clenched so tight it nearly cracked her ribs. She didn't rock the baby. She didn't coo. She just held her, silently, while the child's tiny fists pawed at her chin. Sam watched from the doorway, letting the quiet speak. By nightfall, the baby was asleep in a makeshift crib, snoring like a cat. Martha sat beside her on the floor, back against the wall, knees up, staring at the fire like it owed her answers. Sam poured her a mug of water and set it on the floor beside her. You ever want kids? She asked suddenly. His breath caught. Then he sat down across from her, knees creaking. Had one. Years back. But didn't last the winter. Wife followed him not long after. Martha didn't flinch. I'm sorry. He shook his head. Didn't tell you for pity. Just wanted you to know why I didn't hesitate. When Ellis came. Some things you don't get to try twice. She looked over at the baby. Her little fist had wrapped around one of the crib's slats. She ain't mine. No, Sam said. But she could be. The words weren't romantic. Weren't soft. But they hit harder than any vow ever could. For weeks, the child cried. Not from pain, from fear. Like her bones didn't believe they were safe yet. Martha didn't sing. But she hummed. Chopping carrots. Tending goats. Mending Sam's shirts. And slowly the baby settled. Neighbors started whispering again. Mule Martha's got herself a child now. Wonder if it's even hers. She's strong enough to carry a kid and a man? The worst was the rider from the state orphan board. Clean boots. Pale skin. Eyes like marbles. She's not blood, he pointed out, sitting stiff-backed at their table. And you two aren't legally anything. Sam folded his arms. We're family. Be that as it may, the board has processes. Martha stood up from her chair, slow as molasses. She picked up the mug in front of the man and poured its contents into the ash bucket behind her. Then she leaned forward, both hands on the table. You tell the board, she said, voice like thunder before the flash, that the girl's name is Wren Creek. And if they want to take her, they'd best bring an army. The man left. Quickly. That night, Sam couldn't sleep. He stood out on the porch with his coat pulled tight and a rifle resting in the crook of his arm. Martha joined him just after midnight, baby Wren wrapped tight to her chest. She smiled at me today, Martha whispered. Sam glanced over. She don't do it much. But I made a dumb face while I was washing her and she smiled. She looked down at the baby, eyes unreadable. I don't know how to do this, she admitted. I ain't soft. I ain't gentle. Sam didn't look away. You're constant. You're honest. And you don't lie about who you are. His voice dipped lower. That's better than gentle. She rested her cheek against Wren's head. Do you ever think maybe this was the plan all along? That maybe I was always meant to come here? Sam smiled faintly. I think God's plans are just people's hearts, finally getting brave. The wind shifted, carried the scent of lilacs from the tree down by the well. Spring was coming, but spring never arrives without a cost. 2 weeks later, fire hit the southern pasture. Not natural, not accident. The same crew that rode off the ridge months before had circled back with new faces and black powder. By the time Sam and Martha got the flames under control, 3 sheep were gone. So was half the fence line. Wren hadn't woken through it. But Martha had stood in the yard, tears streaking through soot, shovel in hand, fury in her bones. They won't stop, she said. Sam wiped sweat from his brow. They won't. We can't keep fighting forever. No. She looked at him then. And for the first time since she'd met him, Sam Creek looked tired. Not body tired. Soul tired. "I can't lose this place," he whispered. "You won't," she said, stepping closer. "Not as long as I breathe." He opened his mouth to answer, but behind them, a small voice broke the night. "Mama?" They turned. Wren stood barefoot on the porch, thumb in her mouth, curls wild from sleep. "Mama," she said again, reaching toward Martha. And for the first time, the word didn't sting. It healed. Martha scooped her up. "I got you, bird," she said. "I always will." The fire crackled low behind them. The land scarred, but not broken. Neither were they. They came in daylight this time. No masks. No threats scrawled on paper. Just power dressed in church clothes, riding high in wagons stamped with state seals and legal weight. The man in charge didn't waste words. "We're here for the child." Martha stepped out onto the porch with Wren on her hip and a shotgun cradled in her arm. Sam stood behind her, arms crossed, jaw set like stone. The man was flanked by 2 deputies and a woman in a dark dress holding a clipboard. "She's not your kin," the man said. "And after the pasture fire, we've had reports you're unable to provide a safe home." Martha's grip on the shotgun tightened. Sam stepped forward. "Who reported?" The man didn't blink. "You've made enemies. That's all it takes in this town. One letter. One concerned citizen." "We've kept her safe," Martha said. "She's fed. Happy. She calls me Mama." "Biology matters," the woman with the clipboard said. Martha's voice cracked through the air like thunder. "So does presence." Silence. Wren snuggled closer to her chest, small hands gripping the collar of her shirt. "I ain't blood," Martha said. "But I'm here every morning. When she's sick. When she's scared. When she wakes crying and all she wants is to know she ain't alone." She looked them dead in the eye. "You can write your reports. Quote your laws. But don't stand there and tell me I ain't her mother." The man shifted. For the first time, his confidence slipped. "We have court orders." Sam's voice dropped low. "Dangerous. You ever see a judge bleed, counselor?" The deputies reached for their belts. Martha turned slightly, shielding Wren's head with her arm. "You gonna shoot with a baby in my arms?" That stopped everything. For a long moment, all anyone could hear was the wind through the trees and the creak of saddle leather. Then the sound of hooves. From the North Trail. A lone rider appeared. Preacher Ellis, robe flapping, Bible tied to his saddle horn. He rode straight between the wagons, didn't stop until he reached the porch, and handed Sam a folder thick with signatures. "Petition," the preacher said, breathless. Half the valley signed it. Townsfolk. Ranch hands. Even Miss Grady at the schoolhouse. The legal man frowned. "This doesn't change." "It does," Ellis said, voice steel beneath his weariness. "Because people are watching. Because this town is different now. And because if you take that child from this home, you'll answer to more than the law." The woman with the clipboard looked shaken. "She sings at the chapel," Ellis added. "The child. Little voice like a lark. You take that away, and you break something in this place that don't fix easy." The lawyer hesitated. Wren looked up at Martha. "Mama," she whispered, clutching tighter. Sam's hand found Martha's shoulder. And in that moment, the wind stopped. The trees stilled. The man in charge finally stepped back. "You defer the order," he said. "For now." They left without another word. Martha didn't move until they were gone. When the last wagon rolled out of sight, she dropped to her knees on the porch. Not from fear. Not from weakness. From relief so heavy it could have drowned her. Sam knelt beside her, wrapping one arm around her back. Wren reached up and placed her tiny hand on Martha's cheek. "You stayed," Martha whispered. "You stayed, bird. You stayed." That night, the ridge lit with lanterns. Neighbors came. Miss Grady brought a pie. The preacher's wife brought a knitted shawl for Wren. Sam fired up the pit and cooked venison stew in the big cast iron kettle. By the time the stars blinked awake, there were 20 folks in the yard, people who once wouldn't have nodded at Martha in the market. Now they passed her cornbread and called her Mama. Wren danced barefoot on the grass, twirling in her little patchwork dress, hair flying. Martha watched her, hand resting on Sam's. "She's ours now," she said. Sam nodded. "Always was." They sat in silence a long time, fire crackling, heart steady. And then Martha stood, brushed off her skirt, and walked to the front of the yard. She looked around. The people, the light, the trees that no longer felt like barriers but like protection. Then she took a breath. And she sang. No music. No instruments. Just her voice, cracked and raw and full of 100 lives she'd carried on her back. She sang of mercy. Of dirt roads and second chances. Of girls who weren't soft but were still worthy. Of men who didn't rescue, but stood beside you. A family that doesn't match, but fits. When she finished, even the night felt quieter, like the stars had paused just to listen. Sam walked to her. "You ready to marry me now?" he asked. Martha smiled. "Ask me again tomorrow," she said. "Let me say yes with clean hands and a full heart." He nodded, grinning like the world had just turned right. The wind stirred the grass. Wrens squealed as someone spun her. Laughter echoed off the ridge. And high above it all, the old barn owl called once, as if blessing the land below. Mercy wasn't something you begged for anymore. Now it was something you built. And they'd built it here, on a ridge no one wanted, with hands no one trusted, raising a child no one claimed. They called it Mercy Ridge. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something you weren't expecting, don't let it be the last. Subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell so you never miss when the next chapter drops. There's more to be told, and you won't want to miss what happens next.